Unity community, and welcome back to another official Unity live stream here on twitch.tv/Unity and of course the official Unity YouTube page. My name is Jackson. I am one of your community managers, and it is my responsibility to bring you the latest and greatest in live stream content to both of these channels. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. It is our hope that you join these streams 2 a week and walk away feeling informed, educated, inspired, connected, and maybe just a little entertained. Thank you again for hanging out as we have a fantastic show planned for you today. It is, of course, the return of Clocked and Loaded. We have a fantastic guest. Mike Geig will be joining us to talk about building first-person shooter mechanics in a 10-minute, 1 hour, and 1 day time increment. There will be a lot to learn, I promise. So get excited for that. Thank you, everybody. If you are watching here live, please be aware that this is a conversation and we want to hear from you. We already see it in the chat here. Mike has primed you all, but we love to know where in the world you are tuning in from. So please let us know as community managers. It is one of the most incredible things to be able to know just how far this Unity community spreads around the globe. So as we get through today's stream, ask your questions, make your observations, continue to help each other in the chat as you so often do. You are all fantastic at it, and just honestly, keep it up. If you are watching this as a VOD after the fact, take a look down at that navigation bar. We will likely have conveniently chaptered this video so you can skip ahead to whichever portions most appeal to you. And as someone pointed out in the comments of the last video, you can skip all of the yapping and watch it at 2 times speed. So, you know, choose your own adventure on this one, as long as you're here hanging out. Everybody looks like all over the world here. We've got Colombia, Alabama, Northern Norway. Everybody, welcome on in wherever you are tuning in from. Always great to see familiar names or new names. Again, if this is one of your first streams here, we're here usually twice a week, aiming for Tuesdays and Thursdays, as tomorrow is a day off here in North America. We are here on a Wednesday. So if you like this content or want to find additional ways to connect with the community, we are here twice a week. Tell your friends, come and hang out. And with that, no, I can do better. Tell your friends, come and hang out. Speaking of friends, I think it's about time that we bring in my pal, the legend himself. Everybody, please welcome back to the show, the one and only Mike Geig. Mike, happy Wednesday. How's it going?
You're getting pretty good at that Twitch streamer voice. I gotta say, like,
ladies and gentlemen. When I started speaking, I was like, "Uh-oh, I feel it in here," and it's happened once or twice that my voice cracks. And honestly, it's cracked on Unity, where I'm like, "Hey, everybody, welcome to the official Unity live streams." And I was like, "No, bring it all the way down. Let's not do that today."
It's because there's so much reverence.
Yeah, I got really nervous. Is what happened today. But Mike, how's your Wednesday been so far?
You know, it's been a classic Wednesday, and I think in every sense of the word. I'm feeling like just halfway there. So yeah, I'm excited to be here today. I've got kind of a love-hate relationship with the project I've built here. One, I'm really happy with what I've put together, but two, I had such plans. Yeah. So you know, that's how it goes. But I'm good. Jackson, how are you? You're always asking people how they are. How are you?
Thanks for asking. I'm doing pretty well. You know, excited to be bringing this specific piece of content. This is one that, like, we've tried a lot of different things, and some things work really well. We're learning what people want to see from the live stream content, and being able to kind of give people what they seem to be excited about is one of the best feelings for me. So again, we started Clocked and Loaded with the first episode back in February. We reiterated on it and developed it. Of course, it got its name from within the community. Shout out to C Strong on the Twitch chat usually. So very cool to kind of be back in action with this. I love being able to make the content, and again, when it connects with people, even better. So thanks for asking, Mike.
If I see we got a lot of green in the chat here, by the way, a lot of green favorite colors.
Oh, is green the color of the day?
I've noticed a few, so other people are just sort of slacking on that one. So Team Green's winning right now.
Yeah. Again, if anyone has a favorite color and they want to contribute to the conversation, please let us know in chat. We're always excited to know. But Mike, if anybody is unfamiliar with you, can you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and what you do at Unity?
Yeah, I'm Mike. Hi. So I've been at Unity going on 12 years now, so quite some time. That's why my email is just Mike at Unity. Feel free to spam me or sign me up for a bunch of crap I didn't ask for. So I, until very recently, ran the advocacy team here at Unity. I am still an advocate, but I just, as of this week, I am now promoted to Unity's first ever principal advocate.
Ooh.
So I'm no longer running the team. Now I'm just part of the team, but my main job, as all of the advocates, is always representing the users internally, hearing from you all, taking your feedback, and fighting the good fight on your behalf inside the company to make sure that we try to do things right. So again, Mike at Unity is my email. If you ever just like, this isn't right, I'm the guy. Feel free to message me.
And I will say, from my almost year here, this is not lip service from Mike. I feel like you might get that in a lot of places where they're like, oh yeah, we are listening to you. Let us know. I've seen it from Mike where you go all over the world and interact with a lot of different people, and they come to you with, let's call it harsh criticism. And you listen to it. You are very calm. You're very, you care. You want to hear what they have to say. And you funnel it back up through every channel that you possibly can. So highly recommend, if anyone has questions or curiosities for Mike, that they take you up on your offer, because you're good for it.
Channel all that rage into first-person shooters.
That's what we want to see here today. And it's a perfect transition. We're going to kind of get into the clocked and loaded overview a little bit here. So again, we talked about this starting back in February, and then a second entry more recently, which is super fun. And ultimately, this show comes with disclaimers. We put out the challenge to you, Mike, to say, hey, can you accomplish X in 10 minutes? How would your approach change if you had an hour? How would your approach change if you had a full day? Now, the biggest disclaimer is, Mike, should people do it the way that you're about to show it?
Absolutely not. Well, there are some things in here that are useful and interesting and stuff, but it's also one of those things. If you have 10 minutes, you're moving fast. And I mean, even one day, you're just kind of cobbling some stuff together. But I think it's really important. And when we started talking about this format, even showing people success is great, but showing people failure, what it looks like when something doesn't work, I think is more important, so that you start recognizing it in your own work when you're like, oh, I see this thing, it's doing this thing, and I remember that's not a good thing. And here's what we can do about that. So, a lot of people we talk to about this format internally, they start by saying what they would accomplish in the one day and paring it down. And I always say, no plan. I'm going to see what I can get done in 10 minutes. Then I can figure out everything that's wrong with it. See if I can fix those things in an hour, and then see what's wrong with that and see if I can fix those things in a day. And again, every step of the way going, okay, this isn't working. Let's add to that, or make it feel better, or look better, or perform better, or whatever. But a lot of the code in here is just as fast as Mike can write it. So there are errors, things like that. And so, there, like I said, there's going to be some great learnings here. But at the same time, it's not like I'm going to take and do what Mike did specifically, because I would imagine you're going to have more than 10 minutes or 1 hour or even one day to build a thing.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it, right? Like, as much as there will be plenty for you to learn along the way, Unity community, this is not a step-by-step guide. This is not a follow the things that Mike has done here. But again, I think that's been true for all of the entries into this series, and we always have a really good time. Of course, the last one we did was with Esteban on multiplayer systems, which I think is really fun as well. Before we dive right into it, Mike, a comment that came in just as we were setting up for the stream. We had Marco say, hey, I was just today deciding between Unity and Unreal for my next game, a first-person shooter Souls-like mix. So, Mike, we got to convince them today. But also, what we always say on the streams is use the right tool for you. So ultimately, if you're making cool stuff out there, that's what matters most.
Absolutely. Because at the end of the day, I just want to play the games. So I'm not going to try to convince you one way or the other. I'm just going to try to show you some cool stuff. And at the end of the day, use the thing you want to use.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, any tool in game development. If you have 300 hours of experience in a tool versus 0, and you're like, I'm more comfortable and I know my ins and outs here, does it make sense for me to go back? Probably not. Like, I mean, not no, but like use the tool that works best for you for the situation, which is always great. Now, will you learn something here? Absolutely. So hopefully we can dive into that. Are there any other disclaimers, Mike, that we need to really let people know of at this point in time?
I don't think so, but later we're going to hit one. I'm like, I surely should have mentioned that.
Yeah.
No. So, I will just start by saying that I tried to use, I believe I succeeded in using everything that you can freely acquire either from the asset store, and we've got some links, or from just Unity sample projects and stuff. But again, it's not like you're going to be taking this project and rebuilding this thing, because again, architected fast. So that's pretty much the only disclaimer. If you feel the need later to message me and be like, hey, Mike, your code sucked, I'm just going to say, yeah, I know, because that inevitably happens. Yeah.
That happens every stream where someone's like pops in and they're like, Unreal's better. And I go, okay. Like that's cool. When that's the response most of the time, just like, all right, neat. And it's like, yeah.
My job is to represent you, not convince you. So
yeah. Good point. Okay, so I think we're ready to kind of dive in here. The way that we'll kind of roll through this is we'll talk to you, Mike, about what your goal is for each of the different time segments. Yep. We'll show off what we have. With the 10-minute one, we're going to build it live. And then we'll pick through everything and kind of break down. And towards the end, we'll go through a post-mortem learnings of, what did you want to accomplish, but weren't able to, but we're getting ahead of ourselves here. Mike, with the first-person mechanics in 10 minutes, what are your goals? What are you hoping to accomplish?
Yeah. So one, I wasn't planning on building it live. I have it already built. Apologies.
Okay. Well, let's do that.
We could still dissect it. It's not a lot. So in 10 minutes, I wanted to be able to move around, right? I wanted to have a gun in some way, some visual representation of a gun. I wanted to be able to impact something in a scene. I also wanted to have a reticule and have like gun visuals that was more than just like a primitive object. I failed on those two. So in 10 minutes, I ultimately, spoiler alert, I wanted to be able to move around. I wanted to have a visual representation of a gun and to actually shoot something. And someone had said that they predict there will be ray casts in the stream, and you are absolutely correct.
Ooh, is that Mr. Awesome, I think?
Yeah. I believe that was.
Well done, Mr. Awesome. Good job. Crushed it. Okay, so that was your solid list. Now, if we don't need to go through it live, but can you show us what you were able to kind of accomplish? Can we start at the demo and say, hey, here it is, and then we'll break it down and show people?
Absolutely. So behold, the URP sample scene, the Oasis, and I've intentionally left my super awesome character controller off camera for a moment there. So I wanted to give you all the shock and awe. I see someone in chat say, are we doing the double camera setup for not glitching through the walls? No, we've got a better way to do that, because that way requires 2 cameras, but that's not in 10 minutes. So we'll get there. But that is, So here's my amazing character. Look at that. And I will let you all know, and same as with the first stream, I cheated every opportunity I could. So I am using the first person character controller asset from the asset store, because one, it's funny because the URP sample project, of which I made, which you can get from the hub, already had a first person character controller in it, right, which was based off of this asset, but they had taken functionality out of it, and I didn't have enough time to figure out what they messed with and to either put it back or re-enable it or just reconfigure it. So I deleted it all, went to the ad store, grabbed this one, and imported it into the project. So I have my basic movement and stuff, and I've named it character 10 minutes. And it has basically, the main camera, and it's using Cinemachine. It's got the player capsule, which has a character controller on it. I didn't write any of these scripts. This is all just a part of this standard first-person character controller that you can get from the asset store.
Great.
And do we have a link for that one? Did I give you a link for that one?
I have 2 links. I don't think either of them. No, I've got our sci-fi light gun.
One. Yeah, cool. Just look up Unity first-person character controller. Actually, can show you in the package manager if I just go here to my assets, or actually it should be in the top here. It is the starter assets first person. This one right here. So there you go. And so to that, the main camera specifically is where I attach the gun, because again, when you look up, you want the gun to go with you. So I couldn't attach it to the main character's body. It's attached to the head, effectively. I have this sweet gun, which is just a cylinder.
It looks bazooka-y. Like
it does. Yeah.
Weapon-esque.
Weapon-esque. That's the name of my my heavy metal band, by the way.
Whoa, strong name.
Weapon-esque. And so there's nothing on the gun or about the gun. It's purely cosmetic. And then the other bit of work here was in creating this shooting script, which is about as simple as scripts can get. Let me come over here. Let me zoom in a little bit. So we basically just define some range, define some force. We have the position of the gun. In this case, though, it's not actually the position of the gun. It's the camera itself, because we're going to raycast straight out to do the shooting. And then here we are using the new input system, but instead of actually having like action maps or whatever, I'm just doing mouse.current.left button. Was this pressed this frame? And have a raycast hit here. I am raycasting directly forward. The gun is purely cosmetic. And if I hit a thing, then I'm going to add force at the position. I'm adding force in the forward direction. And then at the point that the impact happened. And always my favorite, force mode.impulse. Force mode.impulse is the fun one.
Is that the debut album of your metal band?
That's right. Weapon-esque with our debut album, Force Mode.impulse. That actually sounds like it goes hard, doesn't it? Right?
Yeah,
like
I would listen to that. I check
Force
that out.
Mode.impulse.
Yeah.
We're on to something here.
Yeah, we can get
it. So, by the way, Force Mode.impulse is when an entire amount of force hits an object right at once, regardless of inertia or mass. Force Mode.force is like how you might push a thing. Force Mode.impulse is like how you might kick a thing, right?
Cool.
So kicking a soccer ball versus pushing a soccer ball. All right. So when it comes to making things move fast, Force Mode.impulse is the way to go. So I'll just go ahead and hit play here. There is no reticule, and you'll notice right away I get an error at the bottom of my screen because I'm not doing any form of checking to make sure I didn't click on a thing that doesn't have a rigid body. So it's giving me null reference errors. And obviously there's no real visual to me shooting, but if I do line up my shot with the center of my screen, I can just knock this thing around and cool. And if I want, I can be like 50 for my bullet force and bam, send the thing flying. And that is what I got done in 10 minutes. And I will be honest with you, after 10 minutes, I was feeling a little defeated because I was like, I should have been able to get more done. But 10 minutes continues to surprise me as not a lot of time.
Yeah. I think it's one of the interesting things in the way that we are approaching this from a content perspective of like, we're not sitting down to say, hey, here's the tutorial step by step. We're going to polish and everything is completely fine tuned and exactly where we want it. It is one of those exploratory movements of like, cool, here's your goal. Do what you can in that time. So setting goals and knowing which ones we accomplish and which ones we have to kick down the line a little bit. It's really interesting to see.
Yeah. By the way, I did see you in chat someone mentioning the kind of the dissonance of this word they use between having a capsule character and then the rest of this nice looking environment.
Yeah.
And I will point out one of my stretch goals for the one day was to have a third person model, like a 3D model that was a dummy replacement of the capsule collider so that you were a capsule collider, but anyone looking at you would see the model like a normal first person shooter game does it. But I just did not have time. I tried. I really, really tried. But I feel like I still got a lot of really cool stuff in here. But that was, I wanted it. I wanted that one.
Maybe we do like at the end of the year, we come back and polish all of the clocked and loaded, like the missed opportunities. Cause I feel like Esteban did the same where he was like, we did all of these and like, I kept it to a tight timeline and oh man, there was like 2 or 3 things that I really would have loved to add if I could have. And it'd be fun to see you guys when we remove all the restraints, but I guess that's the entire purpose of this show.
My mind immediately went to like what clocked and loaded jungle juice that'll be. Yeah. So someone in chat here in Twitch says, as I recall, Impulse does use mass, velocity changes not. You might be right. All I know is Impulse is the entire amount of force up front without any like starting inertia or any form of friction. I honestly don't know if it uses the mass or not. But yeah, certainly worth looking up. All I know is Impulse is the fun one. So that's the one I use. Cool. It's been a long time since I actually opened up the documentation on that to verify.
I mean, I feel like I could get some quick Googling in while I go, but I'm trying to stay in the moment, Mike. We're having a good time here, and we got a lot more to cover. So
I appreciate that. And by the way, I do want to mention too, for folks watching, don't leave. We have giveaways at the end because Mike,
great point.
He brings the goodies.
Mike brings the goodies. So we got some stuff to give away if you guys are here at the end of the stream. We're talking physical merch too. We had a whole conversation about like asset store credit and whether people were really excited about it. But we're sending you real goodies. Books. You got a mail day in the future. So get excited for that. Yeah. Mike, are you ready to move on to the 1 hour here? We can get started on just letting us know what the goals were for this one.
Absolutely. So the goals for the 1 hour, first and foremost, I'd like to start by saying, let's fix all the stuff that was broken in the last one. So obviously we got to fix the error when we shoot things that don't have rigid bodies on them. My goals were also to have a reticule, which I achieved in the simplest, dumbest way possible. I wanted to have semi-automatic fire, right? Which it kind of already is, but there's no concept of a cooldown right now. Like as fast as I can click that mouse button, it's it's as fast as I can shoot right now. So I really wanted to have semi-automatic fire. I wanted to have a more visual gun besides just this cylinder, this bazooka, as we can call it. My stretch goals for this 1 hour, and I feel pretty good. Automatic fire. So hold the button down, machine gun style. Which I did achieve. I wanted to have recoil. I didn't achieve that one. So that one, I wanted it. Muzzle flash, I did achieve. And then I wanted to make the impacts more realistic with impact effects. Didn't achieve that one. I wanted the reticule to show a growing inaccuracy the longer you hold the button down, right? So the longer you shoot, the more inaccurate your weapon should become. And I wanted to modify the reticule to show that. Cool. I also wanted to have debug lines in the scene view so I could see where the bullets were going, because this is a ray tracing gun, right? So you can't see the bullets. So I wanted to have a debug view. And then also I wanted to make sure that my gun didn't clip through the environment. And I wanted to just have better gun positioning for the character based on a bunch of games that I played. By the way, I love this job because I'm making a thing about first-person shooters. I guess I got to spend this day just playing a whole bunch of first-person shooters. Though I was literally there with my monitor playing games with a tape measure, trying to figure out, do they put the reticule directly in the center? Different games, they do it.
What did you find differently?
So Overwatch, dead center. Call of Duty, it's slightly lower than center, and the gun is significantly more centered than in other games. And one of the things I was digging into is in Call of Duty's peripheral matters, right? If you have a much wider screen, you have more peripheral, but in Overwatch, your gun is way taking up the side of the screen. And so you lose on the right side so much peripheral vision. Valorant, same. Valorant, much more bigger, blockier guns and things like that. So it was actually quite interesting to get a chance to look at the different shooters. I also want to call out one thing that I didn't mention is that there are really two types of guns in a first-person shooter. There's three. The third one, which I'm not really mentioning right now, is flamethrower style cone, weapon, right? So there's that. But then you have these ray traced weapons where the bullets are instantaneous. And I'm thinking like usually sniper rifles, though I know in Call of Duty and games like Battlefield, it's not instantaneous. There's drop off and stuff like that. But like shotguns, submachine guns, machine guns, all tend to be instantaneous bullet velocity. So I click on a thing, that thing is hit. No point A to point B. But then you also have the projectile based weapons, right? Those where they actually fire a bullet that has to travel, which means whatever under your crosshair when you pull the trigger is not necessarily still going to be there when the bullet gets there. I'm thinking like Farah's rocket launcher and Overwatch. I'm thinking Battlefield sniper rifles where the bullet has travel and drop. I'm thinking of things like that. So
for me, like where it becomes instantly relatable is I played a lot of Marvel Rivals, and a lot of the characters, their projectiles have travel time. Whereas like I think Hela is one of very few that's hit scan, right? It's where you're clicking is hit or miss and no travel time required, which is interesting.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And I mean, I even considered getting into the fine details of how do you do accurate hitboxes for multiplayer shooter games? Because again, my character's a capsule, right? And even if I do have like, a more accurate collider on my third person model, besides just a capsule, setting up proper hit boxes for hit detection is not just a matter of putting boxes where your character's anatomy is. Sometimes on characters it can be making bigger hit boxes than the model, or smaller, depending on them. Like the big tank characters probably have slightly smaller hit boxes and stuff. There are so many topics we did not have time to get into. But there is so much that goes into, how all this works. Actually, someone in Twitch just said, how does Call of Duty and Battlefield make their first person controls so smooth and feel so good? I'll tell you how. Thousands of hours of tweaking and testing and motion capture data from people with like walking around with pinball and the guns and stuff like that to see how they move. Lots of research. That's how. And you can always feel it when a company did the research versus a company that did not in these games. So
yeah, it's interesting that first-person shooters as a genre have existed for so long, but you instinctively know when it feels good to shoot those guns and to have that kind of firearms gameplay, right? Destiny is, to me, an example of as soon as you play, and sure, it's sci-fi, not stripping away the realism, but just like every single gun you fire feels good.
Well, I mean, so Destiny, made by Bungie, which made Halo Combat Evolved, which was like kind of the originator of the aim assist, just make it feel really good. That's why it was Combat Evolved, right? Like it was the whole controller based first person shooter it was really hard to do, because you look at, a lot of games before that were like your Dooms and your Wolfenstein 3Ds and stuff like that, where it's just like clunkier, like think GoldenEye or the first game that I'm aware of to ever do headshots, Siphon Filter, right? Where it was all very axis based movements. And so anyway, a lot of evolution here. So there's just tons to learn from and try. But anyway,
for the 1 hour, do you want to start with the demo? Show us what you were able to accomplish, and then we'll step back and break it all open. Cool.
That sounds good. And so I'm just going to go ahead and hit play here. So now I've got a gun. And by the way, this I did get from the asset store. So we have a link here. I think both of these, because I also have these particle effects from shooting my gun, also from the asset store. So we can just pop up both of those links there.
Got it.
And so so basically I'm shooting this wall, but there's no like hit effects or anything like that. I can't quite see it, but I no longer get an error because the wall doesn't have a rigid body. But if I look in the scene view, the other thing I have is I'm drawing the bullets so that I can do debugging. And you can see how it gets more inaccurate as time goes.
Oh, that's great.
Because it is a machine gun there. So did get that, which is great.
I like the smiley face.
I was like, hey, what's a less violent reticule here? Smiley face feels like a really great thing. And obviously I can still shoot this thing, though aiming becomes a lot simpler. So there we go. And so I got this done. And then also I want to talk a little bit about this concept of the weapon clipping, as someone mentioned before.
Oh, yeah.
I did tackle that, but I turned it off for right now. And I'll turn it on. I'll show you guys how I did that too, because that becomes a really important piece. I will say this actually. So this concept of your gun not clipping through a wall, it's really important. And there's a lot of ways to do it. So an old school way is 2 cameras, as was mentioned in chat, do a camera stack where the main camera sees everything but the gun, and you have a second camera in the same spot that only sees the gun. And that way the gun is rendered on top of everything else. And this works. I've done a very similar thing using render objects in the universal render pipeline. As someone in chat just said, you can also use render objects. I'm going to show you.
Literally as you were saying it.
Yeah. But I will warn you about something here, right? Because if you do it this way, what effectively can happen is if you allow your character to get close to a wall, but still have the gun that sticks out, but visually appears in front of the wall, you have a dissonance that can make people motion sick. It makes me motion sick. It's one of the reasons I couldn't play Half-Life 2. Even though everyone tells me how amazing that game is, I can't play it for 2 reasons. 1, because of that. And 2, because in Half-Life 2, the character controller pivots on a spot. So your eyes pivot immediately on a spot, but in your real body, your eyes are not at the center of your head. They're in front of your head. So your eyes pivot on an arc. Right. So if you build a game where your character controller pivots on a point and other people are used to pivoting on an arc, because that's how we really move, you will make people motion sick. So in this game, your eyes pivot on an arc, which is important. But anyway, so gun clipping, right? So the other way you can do it, which is the way I do believe things like Overwatch does it, is you just have a slightly further out bubble collider that just prevents you from getting too close to the wall. You just never get to the point where your gun physically can't be there. And that works too. You could try putting a collider on the gun, but then you have a problem of as you move, that collider sticking out like an arm knocks over all the lamps and things like that. And that's just really awkward. So it's kind of like a sphere collider that sort of sits in front of you. Both have their pros and cons, right? Depends on how close you want to be able to get to a wall. The bubble collider can be problematic if you want to get really close to the corner to peek around the corner for shooting and stuff. But again, it just really depends. But let me show you what I've done here. So
yeah, let's break into
it. Let's get into it. Well, actually, you know what? I'll do that first. Okay. So I have this cube, and I just have this cube here to show you that it's clipping, right? And we can see that here where it clips in. So again, I could do this double camera technique, but what I'm going to do, since this uses the universal render pipeline, I'm going to go to my universal render pipeline settings here. Actually, before I say that, I am going to point out that my gun is on the gun layer here. Okay, so gun layer. And so I can go into my settings here, and I can see like, okay, we got the opaque layer mask and all these things and all these things and all these things. And what I'm interested in is right down here, this basically add render feature, render objects. And actually, you know what, can I do this to zoom in? There we go. So I've already created these. And so the first one is saying, you know what? I just named it gun always. And it's saying, all right, after rendering, but it can really just be like sort of after opaques or whatever. Basically just after everything else is rendering. But I was playing around with it and I did after all rendering. It's the opaque Q, and the layer mask is specifically gun. All right. So I want you to render anything on the gun layer after all of the other opaques. And for my overrides, I have my depth set to always. Now, when I turn this on, it works sort of. So you can see how the gun now isn't clipped by this cube, but it looks weird, doesn't it? I'm trying to think of how I can maybe make this a little bit more wider for you to see. Basically, it looks really weird, right? I can kind of see inside the gun, and that's a problem. We don't want that to happen. And the solution is you render once, right, without the depth test. And then I'm going to render a second time after rendering, or whatever queue. I think I changed it to be this after rendering opaques. And this time I'm doing the normal less equal depth test. So as this is writing to the depth buffer, it'll be like, cool, I've got it figured out. So now no longer is it clipping, right? And it doesn't look all wonky and weird. Now, the reason I have this turned off by default, right? And you can see it here now, even happening in the scene view. And I can turn this cube off. The reason I had this off by default, because this scene, by the way, there's that thing here. That is caused. Yeah, that's caused by, actually, I forgot I left this on. I was playing around with these. I was overriding the camera, which is another cool thing you can do here, actually. So you can have a very wide field of view, but that'll make your gun look really stupid. So then you could just render the gun with a normal field of view, which is kind of what you're seeing here, where it's like, what's the field of view of the camera that I want to see my gun? And I can hide the camera otherwise, or the gun otherwise, but that's why you're seeing that. So ignore that. And so now I can see the gun, it renders on top of things, but for a weird like shader thing in this particular scene, is it not going to do it now? Looks like it's not. Is the decal shader still renders on top of it for some reason. I can't figure out why, but I'm not a shader guy. And it actually looks like now it's not happening. So
fixed it.
I guess, whatever.
I feel like it's one of the most dangerous things. It's the same with our live streams. When something is fixed or broken, when it's fixed in a way that you didn't do yourself, because if it breaks again, you still don't have the solution.
Yeah, but I did save and reload the scene, so maybe that's just all it took. But anyway, cool. So with that on now, and I hit play. Yeah, weird. Before there's decals on the ground right over there and over there. They would render on top of the gun because the gun wasn't rendering to the depth filter, but whatever. But anyway, now see, I can get really close to the wall, and I am still rendering some shadow on the gun, which I can turn off. But you see what I mean? I can get really close to the wall, but the gun is still in front of me.
Cool.
So like I said, that can be problematic. And what you will notice is that in most games, and the thing that I didn't fix in this step, but it's fixed in the next one, most games have the gun significantly closer to that reticule. For me, it's way over here, which is another problem, because if I were to walk right up to the wall and pull the trigger, the impact effect would be right here at the reticule, but that doesn't make any sense. The impact effect should be over here. That's where the gun is. And so by moving the gun as close to that reticule as possible, my eyes won't detect that little trickery, which is effectively happening there. So that's what that is all about. I can open up the code if we want to see some code here. It's not, let's break it down. And so with this code here, just a lot more settings. So the transform, this is where the shot is starting at, which is the center of the camera. Again, same, now we have a fire rate and we've got our max range. We have this base accuracy. So how much deviation from perfect we're going to do. And then what's the maximum amount of deviation? 5 degrees is kind of what we have in here. And then how quickly do we gain inaccuracy from holding down the trigger, and how quickly do we gain inaccuracy, or how quickly does it drop off after we stop firing, the force of the bullet. And then I have this, are we going to draw these debug lines? I do have sections for effects. So there's, where is the muzzle of the gun, even though we're not necessarily shooting from there. What is the, so I wrote this script called VFX Player, which VFX Player is just a script that just goes, find me all particle systems. And this is the particle asset pack that I'm using from the asset store. So find me this script. And then when I say play, it iterates through here and just renders, basically just causes the particle system to emit a single particle. Every bullet is going to emit one particle of these systems. They're not actually set to run. They're turned off, and just says emit one for every bullet, which gives you that when you're firing. So inside here, basically an update. Okay, we're saying, are we currently firing? Like, are we pressing the button? Let's get how much time it's been since the last time we shot. And then if it's time, so if it's more than the fire rate, we're actually going to fire and accumulate inaccuracy. Otherwise, if we're not firing, right? Again, we're still accumulating time, but we're now decreasing our inaccuracy.
So is that mechanic in place so that you hold down, you're firing, you're scattered, and then stop shooting, it doesn't immediately come back to one, it slowly comes back?
Exactly. So if your gun is like all over the place, it's not immediately snapping right back to perfect. It calms down. But the idea is you want to recover quickly. But that's all controllable within the editor because we exposed it there. So yeah, I'm looking at the chat here.
Out right now for everything being public, but it's what said, and they came to the same solution as well, or same conclusion as well, that it's like sometimes when you move fast, you're not doing things the exact right way. So we had an hour.
I will call out for the folks who don't necessarily know that I did public here, so it appears in the inspector. The right way would be to do serialized field, but I absolutely did not want to put that attribute on each and every one of these and take time. So if I did serialized field private, that enables them to be private, but also still appear in the inspector so that I can modify them through the inspector. But like Sonic the Hedgehog, I got to go fast.
Got
to go fast. So now instead of just basically ray casting from the very center of my screen, I'm going, let's get an inaccurate direction, which basically is grabbing the center of my screen forward. And then we're just randomly offsetting that by some amount of inaccuracy and returning that vector 3 back. So it's going to be kind of in this cone.
So the inaccuracy growth is random. It's not controlled.
Well, the rate of growth is linear, is controlled, but how much you're scattering, like which direction you scatter is random.
Okay,
right?
Interesting.
Because that's the nature of inaccuracy. Yeah,
sure. My brain goes to like games where, depending on what gun you're using, there's like there's a predictable randomness. Like I remember getting really into Apex, and they're like, oh, if you use this gun, it actually scatters up to the right a little bit more. Obviously, this is a 1 hour project, but that's just where my brain goes to kind of connect the dots on this.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so, and that's the thing, different guns would have just different base accuracies, max inaccuracies, and increased rates and decreased rates. So if this was a heavier gun, high caliber, I'd make the max inaccuracy like 15, which is wildly inaccurate, and have this like climb fast, right? So it's just really, this script is written in a way, and you'll see it in my 1-day version where I really extract out this concept of different types of guns with different properties. But that's just kind of how we'd simulate that here. And the idea of like, if we didn't do the randomness, you would just have a circle appearing. As your inaccuracy grew, it would just be the rim of the circle. But we don't want that. An inaccurate shot could still be dead center. The point of inaccuracy is we don't know where it's going to land. So it's spread around inside that circle. So there we go. And then basically inside here, if we have a muzzle flash, play it. Then we're ray casting out. If I want to draw the debug, that's where I do my debug.draw line, which is a great editor tool for drawing lines in the scene view. So from the origin into where it hits, though the way it's written right now is that you only get these lines if you actually hit something. In the future version, it'll draw those lines regardless. But right now you have to actually hit something to draw the lines. So there was a time where I was like clicking on the sky being like, what the hell? Why is this not working? And then I was like, right, okay, yeah, I got to actually hit something. And then if we have a hit effect, which we don't, I didn't get a chance to get that done in this step, then we're going to draw it. And then the thing that fixed the error with, hey, this thing you're trying to put a force on doesn't have a rigid body, is instead of like hit.collider.get component rigid body, I'm doing the hit.collider.try get opponent component. And what that'll do is that this method, try get component, returns true or false. Does it have it? Does it not? If it has it, then if we type out rigid body, it'll create a variable that I can then just use. And if it doesn't, then obviously it skips what's inside here. So try get is the way to make sure. And so in the past where you might have done even this, where if muzzle flash does not equal null, do a thing. With components, you can do try get to do both the check and the resolution at the same time. So there you go. Someone just asked, how would the code be handled in multiplayer? So multiplayer is interesting because basically the cosmetics are handled locally and the meat, the important game logic is handled on the server. So what you would do is you would say like, hey server, I'm attempting to fire at this position. And the server would look at that and be like, I agree. And I believe you succeeded. You have fired. Now I'll let everybody know. And like you, the character you're controlling is the only real player in your game, right? Because everyone else is dummy bots controlled by players elsewhere, where they're just visual. There's no real logic happening there. The server's telling them what to do, and you're the only one running logic saying, hey server, I'm trying to do this. Hey server, I'm trying to do this. So it's a little bit more complicated, but once you kind of get the concept that if I'm playing a 4-player game, there are actually 16 players. There's 4 players on my machine, 4 players on your machine, 4 players on your machine, and 4 players on your machine. On each of those machines, only one of them is real. Like if I'm player one is the real, and the player 2, 3, and 4 are dummies. On player 2's machine, 1, 3, and 4 are dummies, and player 2 is real, and so on and so forth. Once you wrap your head around that, and then everything just sort of gets relayed through the server like a weird game of telephone, then it all just sort of clicks, and you're like, okay, I'll just have to tell the server what I'm trying to do, and it's like Dungeons and Dragons. Hey, DM, I want to do this thing. And the DM goes, you've succeeded, or you have failed. And here's the result. And that's basically multiplayer games, Dungeons and Dragons. So there you go.
The server is the DM. Here we go.
That's right. You just tell it what you want to do. It tells you if you succeeded.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
That's great. Is that kind of everything that we wanted to showcase in the 1 hour?
Yeah, I think so. I would just kind of point out real quick here that, like I said, so these came from the that asset pack that we linked. And so we basically have a particle system. Its emission rate and all these things are irrelevant because I have it set to not loop. I have it set to not play on awake. It can probably try to emit, it's trying to emit a bunch of them and whatever. That's irrelevant because it's not actually going. What is happening is in my script, I'm saying, regardless of how much you want to try to do, you're emitting 1 particle. And it's going to do that here. And there's this little glow effect. And then there's the sparks effect as well, because this is an effect, this is an effect, a glow is an effect, and there's a light. So to create just that muzzle flash, it's 3 particle systems and a light. It takes a lot actually to make it, well, right, when I have this selected, then it wants to just keep playing. I forgot about that. Stop. Nobody likes you. There we go. There we go. So it is 3 particle effects. right? And a light, which you can see it lighting up the ground there.
Whoa.
And lighting up the gun and stuff like that. So,
Mike, let me ask you a question. When you're playing a game, do you personally feel very particular about the muzzle flashes on the guns? Like, does it ever connect the dots in your brain? You're like, this is not the muzzle flash for this weapon.
Absolutely. Well, yes, though. I mean, sci-fi weapons are a little bit harder, but more importantly, the muzzle flashes, the sound, and the recoil settings tell me if this is a gun that I personally enjoy using. Okay. Right. Again, I play a lot of Overwatch, big into stadiums right now. And Soldier 76, his gun feels good. Right. Yeah. And I think that's the important part. Like, the cosmetics of the gun are irrelevant to the gameplay. They don't affect it at all. Yeah. But they make it feel like really good. Like, for the slow thud, 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 thud of like a big heavy machine gun feels good. Right. And so that's what we call the juice, right? And it takes a lot of effort to make guns that feel good in games, right? And a lot of times that means making them feel not realistic. Yeah. Because guns in real life, they're just kind of like shrill and loud, but they lack that real deep bass that we're used to from movies and stuff like that. Guns in real life rarely spit fire out of their barrels and stuff like that. They're just kind of like, is that it? Yeah. So I think that part is important to get you to like really feel it and enjoy it in your game.
Yeah, we've talked about it before, but like the diminishing returns on realism in games. Like, for me, the example that comes to mind is always Red Dead 2, where it's like, that's great, but I don't need to spend 6 seconds skinning an animal for that realistic moment. Like, game enjoyment and fun versus realism, there's a point at which they just kind of separate.
Exactly.
This was super enlightening for the 1 hour here. Are we ready to start talking about the one day? I know you.
We are, though. I did forget to mention how I did the reticule. So, like I said, this is about as dumb as you can do it. But as my grandpa always said, if it's dumb and it works, it's not dumb. So I have a canvas, and I just have an image that is dead center on my screen, and that's it. It's just a UI piece.
I think the bull called out, or maybe it was Mr. Awesome as well, that was like, so just break out UI toolkit and throw it in there, and that was it.
That's it. Now, that is great unless you want to do things like, again, I'll go back to like Soldier in 76 and Overwatch, where when he uses his visor, the reticule actually moves to the thing he's locked on. Right. And so at that point, you still can use a UI element. And that's like still what I do even in the one day. But you'll want to use code that basically says, all right, where on the screen does this go that I draw a line through my visual through that reticule onto the thing it's locked onto. Right. So, yeah, basically, it always can be a UI element. Usually it's just something that's rendered on top. Right. I would even argue that using like a UI canvas, UI in the sense, or even UI toolkit, so maybe even overkill, like in terms of performance, because it doesn't need to physically exist. It just needs to be something you render. It can just be like a shader. It can just be like a particle, right? It just needs to be something visually that is there that you can move around, but it doesn't actually have to be in your scene view. It doesn't have to actually be attached to anything. It literally can be a shader that is just rendered on the GPU and not real in any sense anywhere else. This is obviously the fast way to do it, but you don't really need to do anything else.
Nice.
Yeah. All right.
I guess.
One day.
We're going into one day. And again, if anyone is kind of just joining us, we are breaking down Mike's effort to create first-person shooter mechanics in 10 minutes, 1 hour, 1 day. If, again, you're joining us in the middle of this, stick around to the end, because in about 40 minutes time, we'll be doing a giveaway for some Unity swag. So lots to look forward to. But Mike, as we looked at your 1 day here, how many hours were you actually able to commit to this?
So I gave myself approximately 8 hours, splitting 4 hours on Monday and 4 hours yesterday. So I was really like racing against the clock on this one. So I was like, please let me get done, as I keep getting pulled into meetings and other things are popping up. I'm like, I need to do this. But no, we made it work. So approximately 8 hours. And I also, by the way, in chat, some people saying, hey, too bad UI Toolkit doesn't support world position or world space. And does it? It does as of 6.2 or 6.3. I don't remember.
I think 6.2 beta. Andrew the Day on the Twitch side is saying 6.2 beta. And in my preliminary setup for live stream content, I think I've also seen that. But I'll grab the post, the information for 6.2 beta. And if people want to dive into it, they can find those answers as well.
Yeah. And someone else asked, why not, MPUL asked, why not do this with visual scripting? I just don't know how to use visual scripting. I've just never used it. So that's why I've just, I've just never done it. So that'd be why I've never really opened it up. I will say this, in order to get the stuff done for the full one day, again, I cheated. I did use Unity's AI stuff. I used Unity AI assistance on this. I didn't use the generators to generate any graphical assets or anything like that, but I did use the assistance. And it was a lot of things like I wanted to do a line renderer, and I was like, I don't remember how to use a line renderer. And so I was like, how do I use a line renderer to draw a bullet? And it's just like, oh, you're going to want to do this. You want to do that. I'm like, thanks, man. Then I went and did the stuff. So it was really quite helpful for that. And so I got quite a lot done. Let me talk about what I was trying to get done in the one day here.
Sure.
And I will actually, you know what? I will make this my one more shout out to Unity AI. It's in beta right now. It's completely free to use. Go try it out. Like it's actually really, really helpful. I don't know.
The link to the Unity homepage AI page. So if you want to learn more about it there is more information about it in the discussions post for 6.2 beta, which is there. And next Tuesday, we'll be doing a stream about how to use Unity's AI tools in that beta. Also able to confirm that for this 6.2 beta, World Space UI for UI Toolkit is included. Is a part of that. So
nice. So yeah, try out the Unity AI stuff. It's really, really cool. It is free. It is not trained on any of your data. It is, everyone always asks, oh, you're going to train on it. It is not trained on your data. There are some tools coming that will allow you to say, yes, I want Unity to train on my data, but it's a 1,000% opt-in with all these like, are you sure kind of things. So it is purely like a nice little thing here. Our goal right now is just to gather feedback from users. Try it out. Let us know. It's amazing. It sucks. All that stuff is useful, right? So yeah, try it out. So cool. Okay. So let's talk about what we want to get done here in the one day. So I wanted to have different gun modes. So remember how I talked about the hit scan versus the actual projectile? I have two guns now. I have my machine gun and I have a rocket launcher. And that rocket launcher has the lock-on capabilities, which is also fun. I wanted to have advanced like iron sights, right? So, you know, how you right click and hold up your gun to a scope. I wanted to have recoil. So the weapon actually recoils when you fire. I wanted to make impacts more realistic with impact effects. I wanted to actually modify the reticule as I'm firing to show me the inaccuracy as it's growing. I wanted better gun positioning, which you can already see here I achieved by getting the gun more center and closer to the reticule there. I wanted to get that third person model working, but I just didn't have the time. I really wanted it though. I wanted to refactor how the code works for the gun. And I wanted to actually render out the lines of the bullets in the game view so we could kind of see the bullets flying, even though, again, they're instantaneous. But I wanted to kind of be able to visually approximate the path of my bullets in the game here. So all that being said, let me go ahead and just run it, show it to you, and then we'll go from there. So I'll hit play. And so first off, we've got some lines there. We can see the bullets. We can see the smiley face growing and shrinking with the inaccuracy. All right. And you can see the impact effects on the wall. So I got like this, which just feels kind of good. All this stuff is pooled with Unity's object pooling, by the way, which was cool because I've written object pools a billion times, but I forgot Unity now has one built in. So I was just like, oh, I've never used it. Here's a great opportunity to learn how to use Unity's object pooling, which is actually just really, really simple. You basically say, give me a pool, give me something out of the pool, put it back in the pool, done. So I really appreciated that because normally you have to write all the code for all that stuff. So there's that. I also have the right click to iron sight.
Oh, nice.
All right. So you can just like, there we go. Aggressively friendly. Bam, 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 bam. Got some jumping in there for all the people that love to like bunny hop during the games.
You gotta. The rocket
you
jump
gotta.
classic.
Yeah. We got sparks flying off the hit effects.
Oh yeah, I like the. I know it's a happy face, but I like that it expands to represent the inaccuracy growing over time.
Yeah. Well, in my original UI, the smiley face was actually just the smiley face ASCII character. It was literally text box with the text of the smiley face. But I'm like, okay, I can't make that grow and shrink in a really graceful way. So then I had to go and basically turn it into an image. And then now I can just scale the image up and down using a simple scaling script. So there we go. So now that, and then, so that's all this gun here, all good stuff. But then I also have, ta-da, this is my rocket launcher. It's the same model with a slightly different skin, because again, I just didn't have time to go find that. I also, this one's important. So the bullet, or the rocket in this case, does come out of the barrel of the gun. Unlike the machine gun, where it's all graphic, all visual, but the hit scan comes straight out of center. With this one, the projectile is too big and too slow. You would absolutely see it not come out of the barrel of the gun. So I, again, went back to a bunch of other games and said, how do other games handle this? And things like Overwatch and stuff do this. They get the gun really, really, really close to the reticule, so that even though it's faking, like the missile actually kind of comes out and then turns to fly straight, but it's so fast and so minimal that you can't tell, right? So that's what I'm doing here, where it's actually following yeah, it's just blue. I just made it blue.
It's good
because I didn't have a model for it.
Stands out. You had 8 hours total. You had a lot to get done.
Because you see, it flies straight from my screen, even though the gun is angled. So theoretically, it should shoot off that way, but it doesn't. It kind of just fires at a weird angle.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah. And if it hits something, it explodes. But again, I didn't have a chance for explosion effect. But the cool thing here is, right, so one, it's an explosion. So now I'm using a different, and yes, I saw some in the chat. I will show you how the object pooling works. Now, instead of using add force of position, I'm using add explosion force, which is absolutely my favorite physics method here. So, all right, so we get some cool little explosion effects where we can have like upwards portions to this. Like if I come in here on my character and I look at the rocket launcher, I have this upwards modifier, or maybe that's just on the rocket itself. Yeah, the upwards modifier, if I set that to a 3, then this thing just goes,
that's great.
Because that's just like, the upwards modifier is purely cinematic. It is not physically accurate in any way. It is like things that fly up look cooler. Here's an upwards modifier if you want things to just fly in the air and shoot them. But the other cool thing is if I hold down the right mouse button and then I aim away, I got locking
that's
on.
right. You said there was a lock-on functionality you created.
I can click and then I can. Now it can only turn so fast, which again I can control in the settings, but now we can do like beep beep beep. One thing I did want to get done, but I didn't have time, was to get the reticule to stick to where I had it locked on.
Sure.
But again, just
kind of like Soldier 76's visor, as you were talking about.
Yeah, or just any game that has a lock on at all, right? Where the lock on stays with the thing. I wanted to have that done, but just not enough time.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, I feel pretty good about this. Yeah.
With this rocket launcher impacting the ball, do you think we could make a Rocket League with rocket launchers?
I think it's right there in the name.
It's right there. Rocket. I think it's
impressive that I haven't. I will say this: anyone who played original Halo, Hang 'em High, 4 players, rocket launchers only, has done this, right? All 4. You know what I'm talking about. For anyone Hang 'em High, it's that one arena where everything is just really high and concrete, and everyone only has rocket launchers. That was the way to play. So there you go. So yes, someone said here, how would you do about adding tracer rounds? So that's kind of what the machine gun already does. Those are tracer rounds, and I just did that with a line renderer, right? So, and that's how we're rendering that line, which you could just make it 1 every 5, because that's how tracer rounds normally are in real life, is 1 every 5 bullets is a tracer round, or maybe even 1 every 10. So only like the 5th or the 10th would actually light up there. But let's talk about how we did this. So a couple things. One, the UI is now embedded on the gun itself, because different guns will have different reticules, right? So basically the way I've made it now is that the character shooting script only has 2 things. What guns are on it? That's it. And note that this says guns, and yet it's receiving machine gun and rocket launcher. And that is because one of the biggest things that I did here is I created a base class called gun as a mono behavior that has virtual methods that are meant to be overridden. So it has it has an update method, it has a fire method, fire released, an alt fire released, can fire. So this handles the timing and stuff, and then shot effects if any exist. But it doesn't actually handle any of the logic of what the gun does, right? It only says, can I shoot and have I shot? And that's pretty much it. But then we get into the machine gun class, and the machine gun class inherits from gun. All right. And basically overrides its update method, overrides its fire method, overrides its alt fire method, and says, no, I'm the gun. And it still calls the base one to handle timing and stuff. But this is where I handle, going into my advanced sights, right? Or, leaving advanced sights, or can I shoot and have I shot? And what's my inaccuracy? Because the machine gun is inaccurate, but the rocket launcher is not. The rocket launcher is straight every time unless you are locking on. So with the rocket launcher, it doesn't do ADS. Instead, its alt fire locks on to something. It says, am I looking at a thing? All right, we'll grab the point that I'm looking at and make that the point that I'm locking onto on this thing. And then most of the methodology here in the rocket launcher is just spawning the rocket. And then the rocket itself has all right, I'm going to fly forward. I'm going to track a thing. I'm going to use some look rotation to turn towards a thing, but I can only turn so fast. So maybe I miss it. And then what happens if I explode? And then you have this add explosion force, which is my favorite, which is the amount of force where the explosion is happening, how wide the radius is, because an explosion can explode and hit a lot of things. There's your upward, and then again, force mode impulse. So there's that. And these things all kind of come together. By the way, I'll challenge the class.
Ooh.
Right? Yeah. So player shooting has an array of guns, but not a rocket launcher and a machine gun, just an array of guns. What is it called in computer science when an inherited class represents a base class? Because it is a relationship.
Bagardi Texas magic. Is that the correct answer? Mike, as a father, how often do you answer your kids' questions of why is something this way with magic?
Oh, all the time. Unless I remember the first time they asked me where babies came from, and I said Detroit, and they walked around with that nugget for a while before someone else was like, "What are you talking about?" But yeah, no, I tell my kids there is no lengths I won't go to lie to them. There is nothing that will stop me from ever trying to trick them or lie to them in some way. We have some correct answers in the chat. Polymorphism.
Wow, Maurice! It is congratulations.
Polymorphism. Actually, let's give Maurice a prize. I got a bunch of these things. So
Maurice wins?
You get a prize. Yeah, Maurice wins a prize. Yeah.
Maurice wins a prize.
Because why not? That's what we're doing today. That's how we run. So I'll let you figure out how we're going to do that. But yes, Maurice, you're going to get a prize. So fantastic. Anyway.
Yeah, I'll figure that out.
Yeah, we'll figure it all out. So polymorphism. Anyway, and it's actually been a long time since I got to use polymorphism. So I got really excited. I'm like, oh, I'm going to get to use that and use that term. Now let's talk about the object pooling, because it did come up. And so for the line renderers, what I have here is Unity now has a class type called object pool, and what's going in it, in this case, a game object, and line pool, and then also the hit effect pool. So these are just two pools. And then inside my start method for the line renderer pool, I just say line pool equals a new object pool. And then I just have to specify what happens. How do I want to handle creation? Well, creation is going to be instantiating. Cool. I'm going to instantiate one when I need to create one. What do I need to do when I need to set one active? Well, we're just going to set it active. What I need to do when I need to release one? We're just going to set it inactive. I could make it destroy. So when you release it, it's destroyed, but that wouldn't be an object pool then, would it? So, and then what do you do when I task you to destroy it? Well, you destroy it. But again, you can make these sort of whatever you want. You have a collection check, can you do this? And then what's the default capacity? And if you go above that capacity, it'll just grow, instantiating new ones. And so that's it. So this just creates your pool for you. Same with the hit effects. And then when it comes time to actually use it, down here in draw bullets, I just say, all right, line pool, get one. So it gives me a line. And then I just grab the line renderer off of it. And if I was able to do that, just as a sanity check, I set its position. And then I create a start or a coroutine here to say, after a period of time, put it back in the pool. All right. So, and my coroutine is release after time, where it just waits some amount of delay and then puts it right back in the pool. That's it. So I'm like, I create a pool, give me one, cool, put it back, done. If I don't put it back, then it'll just keep creating new ones, which defeats the purpose. So you do have to like take it and then put it back. But there you go. So the only challenge with this one is I was trying to do this myself, and you might be able to do it now, but the documentation I was reading was a little bit older because this came out a little while ago, is that I wanted it to, if I used up all the objects in the pool, I didn't want it to make a new one. I wanted to grab one of the ones that were already in use and just reuse it. And at the time anyway, and that method or that function may exist now. It was just like, no, it's just got to make a new one. I was like, okay, that's not a big deal. I'll just make the pool reasonably large. I made it 100 so that, okay, now I'm definitely not going to ever overuse that. But it prevents garbage collection because we're not instantiating and destroying a bunch of things at runtime. So that is the pool, or the pooling. There we go. So yeah, and then I have my like reticule, set scale, and things like that. If anyone wants to see, like with Rocket, I already showed you this. With Rocket, it's just the target rotation, is the look towards, and things like that. But that's the 1 hour, right? And I can get into like the ADS stuff is so the advanced sites here is because I'm still in 2D view. That is why. And since the UI is a part of the machine gun now, we can't. There we go. So machine gun itself handles the actual gun script properties that used to just be on the character, but the character, remember, only just has a reference to its two guns, and it's just responsible for swapping out the guns that's active. And even in its code, it's just saying whatever gun is the current gun, fire released, all fire. It has no idea what gun is the right gun, doesn't care, and just responsible for switching the guns. That's it. But inside here, we got the main machine gun here that's got all of the specifics of the machine gun. Same with the rocket launcher, all the specifics of the rocket launcher. I didn't get a chance to do muzzle flash or impulse or recoil, but you can, they're there. And yeah, so a couple other things that I did is the recoil itself is handled just by a script. A recoil script, which basically when I tell it to recoil, it moves it back by 0.005 degree or units on the z-axis and then recovers again. So real small thing, but just makes it visually kind of interesting. Yeah, I think that's about it for that. And then what does anyone else want to see? Oh yeah, the ADS stuff. If I go to, I did this just with an animation. So it's an animation that sits on the machine gun itself. And if I look, I've got two animation clips. Default is just where it is right now. And then I also have ADS, and then ADS is the advanced site. So if I'm in the ADS state versus default state, and I use an animator to have two states here. Oh, animator, not animation. And a parameter that is my ADS. And the way I handle transitioning, so it moves up and then moves back, is nothing. These two clips are just a single keyframe that I just use transition time. So it tweens between the two. So if I want to change how quickly you go into ADS, I just increase or decrease that time right there. And that is how you handle the moving into advanced site, moving back. So
it feels like an elegant solution.
It's a simple one. The downside, and this is why I would not recommend doing this in production in an actual game. It's how I got it done quickly. But let's say later someone's like, okay, we want that to feel snappier. Well, how do you fix that? You have to go, oh, shit, where was that animation? Okay, wait, which animator was that? Let me go find which transition was that? Okay, let me click it and let me move this thing a little bit, as opposed to like doing it through script, doing it through code that I can expose in the editor so that designers can just go, yeah, I want it to be faster. Change that value right there on the item itself, and now it's faster. So it's one of the things, like when it first came out, I always advocated for animation events for footfall sounds, right? So if I had a running animation, I could create an event in the animation, right? Every time the character's foot hit the ground. And in that event, I could play the sound of the foot hitting the ground. I could even randomize and stuff, and it was cool. And I was like, look how easy this is. And then like within a week or two of working on an actual project, I kept going, where the hell is that sound coming from?
Oh, yeah.
I've turned off all my scripts. I've turned off everything. What the hell is making it make that sound? Right. Let me go into the animation clip, zoom in on a keyframe, notice the little event thing, click on that, which opens a different script, which then plays an audio clip. And I'm like, son of a bitch. So a lot of these things seem like elegant solutions until they're very much not. So if you well document these things, then great. If you just do it because you're like, I'm going to save myself a bunch of time, you're not going to save yourself a bunch of time. You're going to waste a ton of time later trying to figure out how and why this thing is happening. For a long time, my gun wouldn't recoil anymore. I'm like, why will my gun not recoil? The script is simple. It just moves it back, moves it forward. Simple. But then I remembered, oh, right. It is now controlled by an animation. I can no longer use scripts to move this object. So I had to have the machine gun is the thing with the animation on it. And then the gun model is the thing underneath of it that recoils. I can no longer move machine gun manually through script or anything else because the animation controls it now. There's no, you can't click and drag it. You cannot move it. The animation has it. So the cosmetic thing that actually needs a shake is now a child of it. It took me forever to be like, why the hell is it doing that? So
I still love our capsule character.
Oh yeah. Right.
Yeah.
I believe the original one was Quentin, the capsule character, which is old. Anyone remember Quentin? Anyone old school enough? Some of the original Learn videos at Unity use these two capsule characters. One was Quentin. I forget what the other one's name was.
We'll have to do a deep dive. If anyone from the Learn team is, we'll get that info. We can come back.
Yeah, I think they were Will Goldstone's creation.
Will. We've tried to get him on a stream. He's had his family grows, so he's busy. Mike, Andrew the Day on Twitch says, did you handle the stopping of the rocket launcher firing through the wall, or was that out of the scope of what we were able to accomplish for one day?
So when the rocket collides with something, it explodes and dies. You just don't see it. So it actually didn't go through the wall. It just died. But I did not get to an opportunity to, create the effects. But I will do this. And let me just do a real quick shout out to the people that made these assets. So let me go. I think that is this one right here, the war effects. Let me go into their demo scene. Because you can see, like, again, this pack really impressed me here. And so there's like different effects here. Some of the shaders I haven't updated yet, so you see these little boxes still. But so I could have just come in here. Oh, have one that's really fun. What am I looking for? Nuke. So that's the one I was going to use as the impact effect on the wall, and then stuff like that. But again, it was just a matter of getting enough time. Flamethrowers, right? They did a really good job with this one. So
yeah, this is impressive. 41 different things. Again, let me throw the links to the that's the discussions post, but I'll grab the links to the here we go. To the two asset packs that you used for this.
Yeah. You have different, effects for the different guns and what they look like when they're shooting and stuff. Oh yeah, there's all sorts of stuff. And these ones I didn't compile the shaders for, but so they're just all magenta. But yeah, it was a really solid pack. So I was quite happy because I expected to have to go back to the asset store and find a bunch of different things for a bunch of different things. And it was like, no, this one kind of just has everything. So.
Oh, Andrew fired up and said, I meant more because the actual rocket launcher can clip through the wall, even though you're rendering on top. So I was thinking more the projectiles can spawn on the other side. Like if you had your rocket launcher and you ran up to the wall, if your gun clipped through, could you launch a rocket onto the other side?
You could not. Well, for a couple of reasons. One, because most of the walls are too thick, and you should always make your walls really thick in games to prevent weird crap like that. But two, even though the rocket is coming from the center of the gun, I'm still ray casting out of the center of the screen to aim. And so I would still detect that I'm hitting this thing right in front of me. And it should hit that. Should. I actually have not tried it, so let's find out. But I think the wall is too thick anyway. Can I shoot through? No, I cannot. But that's also why it's just, I didn't put this on the gun layer. That's why it's clipping through. But yeah. I don't know if I'll be able to even see it fast enough because it does go really fast, but it shouldn't. I think the wall's too thick anyway, but I didn't really test it. So maybe.
Time constraints. Andrew says thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome, Andrew.
Sir Mountain says, perhaps I missed it, but did you dive into the locked mode? Did you calculate the trajectory or the projectile, or does it seek the object itself?
Yeah, I don't do math.
Calculate?
School is for fools. No, I don't actually know how to calculate trajectories, and I'm sure I could have let AI or some article show me how. But instead, what I did is the rocket launcher. When I do an alt fire, I shoot out a raycast, and if I hit a thing, I go, cool, you're my target, and this specifically is the point on the target that I'm aiming at. And then I go, hey, rocket, when I spawn the rocket up here, rocket, this is what you're aiming at. And the rocket goes, cool. And here inside fixed update, if it's tracking a target, if it's not tracking a target, it just goes forward. If it's tracking a target, it goes, oh, that's the direction towards my target. Let me try to look towards that target as much as I can, depending on basically the rotation speed that I allow it to have. And so then it's going to be like, okay, that's the rotation I want to have. This is the rotation I can have. And every frame, it gets a little bit closer towards the rotation it wants to have. But whether or not it gets there depends on how close I am to it and how far off my gun aim is. And if I look at the rocket itself, here, that's the rotation speed, 50 degrees. If I wanted this to be pinpoint perfect, cannot miss, I can make that 360 degrees. 360 degrees, cannot miss. Even 180, really never missed, right? But 50 felt like, okay, I've got a decent amount of, if it's decently far and I'm way off, it will miss. And I felt like that was okay.
Yeah. Sir Mountain says that's easier than they thought. So good. Ultimately, I think that's a good thing.
we like good. We like good. The only downside, and again, this is about trade-offs. Going fast is always about trade-offs. Is if you have a lot of rockets, doing these calculations can add up. It can, right? It's not likely going to break the bank on anything, right? It depends on how many you have. But ultimately, if you're worried about the volume, and I'm talking about thousands, right? Games at huge scale, right? RTS games, stuff like that, right? You may want to come up with a simpler system, like predetermine the spline, just have the rocket follow that spline instead of doing its own calculations. But then you're getting into order of magnitude issues anywhere where you really don't even have rockets. You just have a controller that renders rockets and just does all the math in one place. So that's far down the road. But if you're building anything that's just reasonably sized, this will totally work.
Nice. Yeah. Very cool. Mike, I say we should give away some stuff.
Yeah, I agree.
While we do that, we can kind of pair maybe a little post-mortem where we can talk through what you learned along the way, what you would have done completely differently with your new knowledge, what you would do to expand on it. But I'm going to open this up. This giveaway will be managed on the Twitch side of things. So if you are watching on YouTube, thank you for hanging out with us. Hop over to twitch.tv/Unity really quickly. Exclamation point giveaway in the chat will enter you for a giveaway. Mike, what do we give it? Mike, tell them what we're giving away today.
Tell them what they've won. Thanks, Johnny. So we've got a couple things. So one, we have these decks of the Unity Tips card game. These are made by a studio called Binary Impact. These were swag we had at Unite last year. And what I have here are decks of the brand new 2025 Unite edition. And for anyone who hasn't seen them, it's an actual card game.
Yeah, a really fun one too.
Yeah, it's a conference card game. So it's got a fairly simple rule set, but it's fun. You can play with a hand of 1 card, 3 cards, 5 cards, but this is a deck of 54 cards. That's all of them. And one, they have the rules for the gameplay on them because it is a game. But 2, they also have fun little tips on them because they are the Unity Tips card game. So we have tips like how to hide geometry in the scene view. We have tips like inverse lerp time. We have tips like continuous collision detection and what that does. My personal favorite tip, self-care. Take care of yourselves out there.
Wow.
Yeah, we got a couple really good ones. So we have a few of these full decks to give away, right? So with the rule cards and everything. So there you go. We also have The Career Game Loop, a book written by Unity's own Jessica Lindell with just tons of really awesome career advice and stuff like that for the new technology era, all based on what we learned about careers from video games. So I think the opening chapter is all about The Witcher and what you learn in The Witcher and how they be applied to your career and stuff. It's a really good book, New York Times bestseller. So yeah, I think that those should be some pretty solid items. And then you all, if you see me on the streets, you can challenge me to a duel, Yu-Gi-Oh style, maybe.
Duel.
I know. I need the hair though. Like I feel like I can't
We'll get you a
do it
wig
properly.
for night. We'll get you a wig. You can rock the Yu-Gi-Oh hair.
Could you imagine like approaching me in the street and I just whip out one of those arm things that have all the card slots? Like
you wearing
you'll
big
regret
coats
this
forever, just in
I've
case you can
never
reveal.
seen an episode of Yu-Gi-Oh, but I just imagine he talks like that nasally, like you are gonna regret this. He probably does though. He probably has this like really deep. You will regret it. I don't know.
Yeah, dramatic, slow, exciting. Yeah. I had 2 questions for you, Mike. The cards. I think when we were getting into it last year, it's similar to a card mini game in a Final Fantasy. What was the one that we like really quickly were like, if you've
Final
played,
Fantasy VIII.
you'll
If you played the card game in Final Fantasy VIII, which is a take on the game Trion or Trio or Triago or something like it's an actual classic like real world game from way back when. And Final Fantasy VIII had a version of it, and it's that core set, right? That core rule set where you have a power top, down, left, right, and you can capture cards top, down, left, right, played on a grid. So there you go. I did like Bigardi Tech wrote Raycast Obliterate, which is the second studio album of my band after Force Mode Impulse. So there you go. I did enjoy that a lot. But yes, it's a cool game. Check it out. People loved it at Unite. We had like, honestly, the outside area was just full of tables of people playing the game.
Yeah, it was really cool to see.
It seems like a really simple rule set, but then you just sort of get into it, right? Because you're trying to craft the perfect hand because there's 54 cards, but your hand can only have 5 cards. Yeah. Because at most is played on a 9x9 grid. So you're trying to figure out which cards do you bring. And
it was really fun.
Playing around with,
we're
playing around with some different quick to learn, and we have some playing around with some different rule sets, some new ideas. But
fun! I'm excited to hear the updates. The other thing that's going on in chat right now is why does Unity not have a merch store? It's not a question you need to have the answer to, but the number of people that are like, I would love to buy one of these. I would love a Unity hoodie, and it's like we'll give them away, but they're not available in the wild.
I know. It's complicated.
Okay.
Yes, I agree with you, because all the times that I'm like trying to acquire swag for people to then send to them, that if I could just buy it for them on a Unity swag store, have them just give them the credit to go buy it on the Unity store, that would save me so much time. I completely agree with you. And one, it's an issue with vendors, it's an issue with international shipping, and then having vendor entities in different countries. And then if you're trying to have a vendor entity in a country where you don't have a physical location, there's different tax implications. It is complicated and dumb, and you were like, how have we not solved this thing? And if we had any person like that, just their job here at Unity was like filling out these requests and mailing these to people from a central location, we could certainly do that, but no one does that. So I feel your pain, because I want the same thing. I want to just, it would make my job so easy. The other option is to live anywhere near a Unity employee, because I guarantee you their local thrift store or Goodwill is going to have so many damn Unity shirts, because I have so many from being here so long that every once in a while I'm just like, all right, here's another pile for Goodwill. Yeah, exactly. But otherwise,
makes sense. Cool. So we'll leave this open for another couple of minutes here. Again, if you're watching on YouTube, head over to twitch.tv/Unity. Really quickly, !point giveaway in the chat. Everyone's entered into one. We're giving away still 2 more decks, Mike? Or are we doing 1 deck now that we had a winner? Okay.
We can do 2.
2 more decks and the book. So we'll get that here in just a minute. Mike, as a quick post-mortem here, what did you learn along the way that if you were given the same time constraints, you would do differently?
Well, I mean, one, again, and I feel bad about this answer, but there were so many things that I was just like, oh, I remember how to do this, I think. And going back, I should have just starting with like the Unity AI system, being like, how do I do this thing? And just have it like write it out and then be like, cool. Because again, beating my head against the wall, being like, why is this thing not right? Or this thing was deprecated. I don't remember how to do it now. So that for certain, I never used the render objects of the render features of the URP. So I did beat my head against the wall for quite some time on that one, even with both tutorials and with some Unity folks looking into it, because everyone kind of uses it a little bit differently. That looking back on it, I would have started asking questions about that sooner. So yeah, I'd say that I learned. And I don't know. I just really wanted to get that 3D model working. Oh, I had a dream about it. That's how bad I wanted to get it done.
Did you have a dream about it?
I did. In my dream, I was like, here's how I can do it. Here's how I can do it. I woke up jazzed, and then I started, and then I got way late into other meetings and stuff, and just I lost it. But yeah, maybe in the future, because it's not that hard, honestly. And that's why I really wanted to do it, because it seems like it'd be incredibly complicated, but it's stupidly easy to do. And so I'm just like, I just want to show you this. But then I had to go find a 3D model and stuff, and that just was like, okay, whatever.
Yeah. With the drive that I know that you carry for these types of things, I know that your brain must be like, oh, if I had another couple of hours, I would do X, Y, and Z. What would be the next steps in priority for you to kind of upscale this and level it up a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. Third person. You have, which is basically fixing the muzzle flash on the rocket launcher, having better rockets, having better recoil. Like, because I got the rocket launcher, I should make that better. And then the third party stuff, or the third person model and things like that, would be my next highest priorities. But, honestly, I felt really good about this. And last night I was working on it, and I was like, I could just cheat. I could just work more than one day's worth. And by one day, we never really defined it as 24 hours, 8, but I assumed it was one working day.
Basically.
Yeah, right. Because I'm, so I was like, I could just fly. But no.
Yeah, Mike, if you came in and you were like, I spent 24 hours on this, I'd be like, okay, like I'm not gonna be upset about it. We got more to dive into, but ultimately, I know you have a lot that you're working on, that you're busy with. So
yeah, absolutely. A lot. In chat on Twitch, someone said worst part is coming back after a week without documentation. I am never looking at this code again. This code is not well written or documented anyway. Most of these variables, well, I mean, they kind of have meaning to them, but a lot of the variables are just like new position, new position. Like, so yeah. I think that's the other fun part about working on things like this, is just sort of like, yeah, that works.
Yeah. Which kind of brings me to maybe my final question in this little quick wrap up here is this an effective or a good way for people to learn something relatively quickly? Like, put additional constraints on themselves, force themselves to work within them, and really challenge themselves to execute?
In a way, but I think the important takeaway here. So before working at Unity, a lifetime ago, I had done some work as a prototype gameplay developer, right? So the idea of writing terrible code fast was kind of literally what I did, right? And I worked with Torque, if anyone remembers Torque. I worked with Unity, and I worked with Unreal back in the day. And the takeaway there is like, this may not be the best way to learn the right ways to do a thing, but it is absolutely the best way to figure out what is important to you. We always talk about fail fast, find the fun, right? The 4 F's, right? So the idea is, if you give yourself only 1 hour to implement a feature of a game, you will very quickly understand which things about this mechanic or the system actually matter for your game, and which things make it better, make it maybe a little more fun or a little more juicy, if I use that term again, right? But what are the core pieces? Like, I knew 10 minutes, first person shooter, I just have to be able to knock a ball off a platform. Yeah. That's it. Like that. It's not a shooter without that. I can make myself move fast and do all these other things, but if I cannot knock a thing off a platform, I do not have a first person shooter. And same with the 1 hour. What is the core things that have to exist for this gameplay experience to be what is in my head? It is these things. Sure, I love all these other things, but these things are it. So I think that's what you use a methodology like this to learn, which is a big part of prototype gameplay development, is figuring out how quickly can I make this thing fun without any of the bells and whistles, without any of the distractions. Those things come later. But what are the core pieces I care about? Yeah, an MVP, as the bull says.
Yeah, I like the concept of a minimum viable product.
You got it.
But it can't be the same. MVP is already taken. We got to find a different one. I know that that's not our call to make, but like, we can't keep doing this. FPS was the same thing. FPS was the same thing, because in my head, again, we can't say shooting and we can't put guns on our thing. And I'm like, cool, FPS. But I'm like, if someone's coming in here looking for like, I'm going to optimize my frames per second, I'm like, we got to stop using the same things in the same space, you guys.
Or every time someone says FPS shooter.
Yeah, come on. It's not an ATM machine. It's not an FPS.
You're tearing
shooter.
This family apart.
Come on, you guys.
You're right. We need better acronyms. Is it an industry that loves their acronyms?
Yeah.
Yeah. but
my
I'm
favorite fact.
I'm not classically trained. So when I first learned, because I didn't go to school for this originally, right? So when I learned that there was a concept called code smells, and that's a real thing, which means like bad patterns for your programming and stuff. But I'd never heard that. And I was like, you are lying to me. And that's how people knew I didn't go to school for this. They're like, how do you not know what code smells are? And I'm like, what are you talking about? So yeah.
My favorite thing I learned in university was that there is a organization called the International Organization for Standardization, and it's their responsibility to standardize things. However, their acronym is ISO, not iOS. So in itself, they're already failing. It's a whole thing. But they need to really step in here for the MVP acronyms and let us know, really break it down. So I'd really appreciate
redundant
that.
Ministry of Redundancy.
Whoa, that's strong.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. So actually, real quick here, one person did ask in chat, what is the best solution for FPS hands and full body sync? And the idea is that you have them separate. So the hands and the gun are what you see in your camera, but that doesn't have to be what anyone else sees, right? That can just be a 3D model with animations that correspond to the motion that you're doing with some IK inverse kinematics to make sure it's pointing the right way and stuff. And so they have a camera that sees that, and you have a camera that sees the gun in the hands. Trying to do both at the same time, like that's when you get in those like weird things where there's the 3D model, but it's holding the gun like way out here with the camera zoom back and stuff. You don't have to do that. You really only do that in first person, like single player games.
Heck yes.
There you go, Tonic.
There we go. Thank you for Tonic. I was going with Tony K, but I think Tonic is cooler and more right. So
I don't know. Tony K feels very 90s R&B.
Yeah, fair. It's also one of the most exciting and unpredictable parts of this job is trying to accurately guess what the usernames are actually in reference to or how they're pronounced, all of that good stuff. So with that, we are going to... Yeah, he runs a late night 80s R&B channel on the radio.
All you cool cats.
Yeah. All right, gang, we're going to close up our giveaway here, and we are going to draw winners. Now, pay attention to how this is going to work. If you win, I will send you a message via the Twitch channel for Unity, the official Unity Twitch channel, and I'm going to send you a code word, which you are then going to email Mike, because Mike's already given out his email, so you all have it, but Mike's going to get 3 messages with code words, and that's how you're going to win, Mike at unity.com. So I'm going to pull the winners here. The first 2 are for decks of cards, so pulling that name, we got BDB 400. Congratulations. And our second one is Ed Gluzg.
I see what you mean. Ed Gluzg.
Yeah. Edu Glizig. Congratulations as well. Ed Glizig. I will be sending you messages, and our winner of the career game loop, written by Jessica Lindell, is Christina. That one I actually know. We can skip through all the pronunciation. Yay!
That makes a lot of sense. I was just like XTC Tina 3C3.
It's a tough one. It's a tough one. Now, that being said, we already see Sir Mountain saying no luck here. It's not going to be the last time we give away stuff. And Mike, every time you show up, it seems like you're bringing the goodies. So you're always bringing something. I will say this as well, that Maurice, on the YouTube side, that we said we will be sending you a thing. There is no DM functionality on YouTube. If you are able to make a Twitch account and let me know, send me a DM to the Unity account, we will try and get it rolling. If we don't have this resolved at the next stream, we'll try to have this conversation in the chat a little bit again, just to make it work.
Try to find you.
We'll get there. We'll get there. It might take some patience.
YouTube have this functionality.
We'll get there. I don't know. YouTube, I think just too many people got DMs and they were like, I don't want to do this anymore. Please stop. So
that's reasonable.
There we go. There's our winners. But the biggest winner in all of this, the Unity community as a whole, because Mike, I feel like you brought the heat. You gave them something to think about. You gave them something to walk away here feeling a little bit smarter. How do you feel it all went?
I feel like we had a moment. I feel like truly we all had a moment. We all grew together. So there was joy and tears and you know, just we fully embodied live, laugh, love.
We did.
So yeah.
They say everyone's going to remember where they were during clocked and loaded first-person shooter modes, which for the longest time, peek behind the curtain, we were referring to as clocked and loaded shooty. That was our official internal terminology. we were like, I don't know, something shooty. And I was like, great, I'll put it in the doc. There we go.
Guns.
If anyone has any recommendations for what they would like to see created in the clocked and loaded style, please drop a comment into the YouTube chat. Put it in the comments after the video is done. Whatever you would like. We are talking about a couple of different ideas right now, but ultimately there's a lot of different things that we think could fit here. But as always, we want to create the content that best helps you and supports you and connects with you. So if you have ideas of things that you specifically would like to see, please let us know. Mike, any parting words for the Unity community today?
Everybody Wang Chung tonight.
And with that, also shout out to Major Nelson hanging out in the Twitch chat, says he loves these two guys. Look at us and the Mage there hanging out. Thanks, means a lot to us. Mike, we will send you off into the backstage space. I'll catch up with you in just a second here. Cheers. Thank you so much for everything. Appreciate you. Unity community, just you and I now. Thank you so much for hanging out. If you join this stream in progress, please head over to the YouTube VOD. You can check out the entirety of the stream. There's a lot of knowledge and wisdom that Mike dropped throughout this one. So take your time with it, unpackage it at your own pace, and then come and see us next Tuesday. Let's hope that StreamYard is working for me. It's not. I will pull you the link. But next week on Tuesday, we will be doing a stream about how to use Unity AI tools. We talked a little bit about it in today's stream. Mike mentioned the number of times that he was able to use this tool to his advantage in the challenge. So we're going to be giving you the AI overview. We're going to be sitting down with advocate of emerging tech Manu, who's going to be coming in and telling you all about how to utilize these tools and how they're not scary. That's also very important. So come and hang out next Tuesday, June 24th. That's 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, and 5 p.m. GMT. I dropped the link to that event in the chat, so you can get in there, hit that notify me bell, and hang out. There's already 20-something people chomping at the bit, ready for that and ready to go. So it is free to try, as Mike points out. Make sure to give us that feedback. We have the discussions post to the 6.2 beta with a little bit more information that's been in there as well. Thank you. A big shout out to everybody who helped put this episode together. Of course, massive shout out to Mike for all the front end work that was required for today's stream. We appreciate you. Shout out to Major Nelson for popping in and showing the support today. And of course, a big thank you to Jack working behind the scenes to technically execute this stream. Unity community, thank you all so very much for being here. We'll see you at the next stream. And until I see you all again, have a great rest of your afternoon, everybody.